So what's going on, guys? So we're back at Session with Seth, and I've got the infamous Jack Set It and Forget It Searls. How are you doing, Mr. Set It and Forget It?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. So all of you guys know Jack. So Jack, let's start out with the fun question.
Okay.
So I found out that your nickname is Set It and Forget It Jack. And I get the phone calls all the times about the wildlife guys out there that set it and forget it. So why don't you tell us the history of this story and if it's true or not?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that it's not true. I mean, you know, as a young wildlife tech in the industry, you know, we were a growing company, and we didn't. I mean, you've talked about it. I've heard other people talk about it. When you're a growing company, it's really, really hard to not take every call that comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real hard to. That route density is not a thing when you're taking every crumb that comes through the phone line. So when we were still a very small company and just 3 of us, Northern Indiana was our coverage territory. So we're not talking a couple zip codes. We're not talking a county. We're talking State Road 30, Ohio to Illinois.
Yeah.
And so trying to do volume when your route is 2.5 hours east to west and an hour north and south is difficult. So yeah, I'll openly admit that there were times where I would get to a job, throw that cage on the job, do what I had to get it set up, and it might be days before, you know, relying on the customer to check the cage is not necessarily the most ethical way to go about it.
But it's what it is.
But if they agree to do it, you just have to assume that they were doing it. So yeah, that's how the name came about with Set It and Forget It.
All right, so I've got another question for you related to this before we get into something serious. So all right, guys, you guys ready for this one? So Jack.
Yeah.
Do you believe that when back in the Jack Set It and Forget It days, do you believe there's still traps out there right now that you set and just completely forget that they're just sitting out there in Indiana years later?
Man, I would hope at this point in time someone has picked them up by now. Maybe one barricaded on a roof somewhere that nobody wants to get to. If it is, it's probably because I didn't want to get back to it. From the earliest days in my wildlife career, my biggest fear is heights.
Yeah.
And so there may be a cage out there somewhere that's barricaded on a 3-story house on a backside soffit that nobody sees that might still be there. I'm not gonna tell you it's not. I can't say that for sure.
I'm just envisioning like in the future, right? So like we're fast forward 100 years, 'cause there's a lot of old houses up there.
Oh yeah.
100 years from now, someone gets up there and they open up, they're like, oh man, we've got an antique. And it's a guy at an antique. Look at this.
The good news is with the quality of our traps, that'll still be functional. Like they can still reset it 100 years from now, 150 years from now, it'll be fine. It's still a functional trap.
Dude, could you imagine if Tony was sitting here right now and we're talking about longevity of traps, and Tony's like, oh yeah, it's a good idea, 100 years.
Yeah,
Did you imagine his face?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so in all seriousness, man, so you get a chance, I know you've been out there helping these companies, companies are growing like crazy. So let's help some people out here for a second. So we're watching companies expand like crazy. We're watching the value of wildlife companies skyrocket. We're watching people win all over the place. And so like from your perspective, working with all these guys, like what are some of the more innovative things you're seeing them do today? Like what is some of the more innovative, maybe business practices or methodologies you're using? And I know it's kind of a hard question to answer.
So with one of the things that we're seeing trending over the last couple of years, you know this as well as anybody, you work on a daily basis with some of this. The acquisition side is, you know, wildlife is gaining in acquisitions. And I think that one of the big trends that we're seeing is we're starting to see wildlife guys who are understanding the value of recurring revenue.
Yes.
Some of them are doing it by diversifying, going into GPT or GPC and doing general pest control. Some are seeing more of the value in the renewal warranties, where they're not just saying we have a 1-year warranty. Now they're saying, hey, we have a lifetime renewable warranty. This is how much it is every year. So really seeing that shift in bringing the renewable income back into their business, which I mean, I think is a great, pest control's been doing it since inception. So to see guys who are going into a year with 6 figures on the books that are already there. I mean, that's income that's already coming in for the year. I mean, that right there alone is, wildlife is so up and down. I mean, weather is so unpredictable, which means that, you know, busy times that should be busy sometimes maybe aren't busy. So, I mean, as an operator, if I was still in the field today, like that would be my driving force, would be that, so that I had that safety net that if things slow down, like I still have work for my guys. They're still going out there. They're still doing that, still coming in. Yeah,
I would tell you this is like, you know, if you remember, it's been probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I got on a soapbox about this, and we gave a talk on recurring revenue at Nicoa. Do you remember?
I do.
And half the room thought we were nuts.
Yes.
Were you in the room? I can't remember.
I wasn't, but
you were doing a session
heard,
at the same time.
I heard people talking about it.
So half the room walks out, and half the room is like, that guy's lost his mind. Half the room was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Dude, I will tell you this, unrelated to me, Guys, I was right. And by the way, and I never say that, but I'll tell you this, is that I now have phone calls with clients who are in the wildlife sector who are coming into this year, who were like $500,000 companies 4 to 5 years ago, who are now saying, we have $300,000 of revenue in January of all recurring revenue coming into the year. And these guys are getting rich, dude. They're getting rich.
I mean, if we look at it from, I'm going to stretch a little bit, so just bear with me on this, but I think you'll understand the concept. Everybody loves compounded interest in investing. That's all this is. You know, if you do 100 exclusions a year and you sell, the thing that I think guys get hung up on is they go through it in year one, they're like, oh man, I've only got 20 of these that I'm doing for next year. It's not even worth my time to try to pitch them on this until you get 40 the next year. And now you're at 60. And say you're going to lose some of that. So say you come back down to 55, say you lose 5 of them. And then the next year you're throwing another 60. Like, this is compounding interest in wildlife.
It's a good way of looking at it.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And, I think everybody that's watching this understands that if I told you, give me $1,000 and I'll put it in compounding interest at 6% or 8%. It's
a great example.
It's a no-brainer. That's what you're doing. Don't expect for this to be something that you go from 0 to 6 figures in year one. This is something that you're going to grow 0 to 6 figures in the first 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
Even in small markets, I think that's a very achievable number. So, I mean, don't get discouraged by low numbers in year one. Just know that that number keeps growing. It's compounding interest in wildlife.
Yeah, the thing, and I've never, actually, this is the first time I've ever talked about this. Like, so one of the things that we've identified is that if we think about the difference in wildlife versus pest control, pest control, we've historically thought about, it's a preventative maintenance service, right?
Correct.
In wildlife, though, it's about, I find that a lot of the people are just really proud of their work. And so when you get proud of your work, you want to warranty it forever, right?
Yes.
But the reality is that being proud of your work should actually equal capturing income for the future, because you still have to warranty it.
100%.
And so why is it fair to a company to give a 10-year warranty? It's not. It's fair for a customer to pay you monthly or pay you annually, whatever it looks like, because they're going to make changes to your quality work.
Right.
And I think sometimes we get stuck too much in the ego of trying to do the most beautiful, brilliant work ever versus the business function. And I can tell you this is, like, people still disagree with me, right?
Absolutely.
But I think we're right, because we're taking the risk of that customer's action. Like, we take the risk. Like, the customer isn't taking the risk. We're going to come out and fix it, right?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that regardless of how proud you are of your work, if you're offering a set warranty, you're doing a disservice to yourself as an owner and operator, and you're doing a disservice to the customer, because structures change. They shift, they expand and contract. So I don't care how good your work is. I don't care how high a quality it is that you're doing or the products that you're using. Just because I seal something up this year doesn't mean that a year from now there's not something different on that house.
Yeah.
And by being proactive in having that continued warranty type service, you take a fix that might take me 15 or 20 minutes to be proactive on that, I'm starting to see this gap open up, so let's get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Let's use next to nothing in material cost and get this problem fixed now, so that 3 years from now, it's not a gap that has bats coming back into it or mice coming back into it. And not only that, when we really start to dive a little bit deeper into the effects that's going to have on business, is that, and I mean, I've talked about it over and over and over, you don't want to be the company that the customer doesn't remember. And there are a ton of them out there. And if 3 years from now, you're a company who has disassociated yourself from that client and they have another problem, the odds of them randomly finding you again in the ever-evolving world of SEO, it's not great.
No.
You need to keep that contact. Not only that, if we start to look at word-of-mouth referrals, the more you stay in touch with that customer, even though it's only once a year when you let them know that you're coming out, it still keeps you in their mind, and it keeps you in their forethought, to where when they're, having drinks with a buddy and that guy's like, man, I'm starting to hear noises, they're not going, oh, you know what? A few years ago I had a company come out, but I don't remember who it was. But if you do a Google search, you'll find them.
Yeah.
I mean, keeping the presence with that customer, there are so many fringe benefits that come out of that process that, I mean, if you're not offering continued services from a wildlife side, you're robbing yourself, you're robbing your customer.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, obviously you and I are completely in agreement with this, right? We're completely in agreement with this. And I think, and I've talked about this a lot over the last probably year or so, but like, I think that people in the wildlife sector specifically have to really define what a customer is. And so one of the problems we face is that because we did a service, is that person a customer or not? And so the way that I tend to look at this is, I said, look, like what is a customer? From my perspective, a customer is someone who has a future invoice with me. If they don't have a future invoice with me, they're actually not my customer, right? No. That's the way I think about
They're
it.
They're a potential customer, they're part of a potential market, but every random person is that.
Right. So somebody I did service for, if I don't have a future invoice or a paid warranty,
right,
they're actually not my customer. They're actually someone in the market that I did business with,
right,
which is very interesting, you know?
And the thing that is going to differentiate that from a business standpoint is that if that's not a customer that you're continuing on with, you have the acquisition cost of that customer the first time.
Which is expensive now.
Which is expensive. And if you let that customer lapse and be a prior customer, then you're going to have acquisition costs. I'm not saying it's going to be the same acquisition cost, but there's going to be acquisition costs in getting them again in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, when they have forgotten who it was that they worked with. I mean, the process starts from zero when they no longer remember who you are.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, you know.
100%.
So I want to shift gears for a second. I want to shift gears. So because of obviously the nature of AAC, you guys do you guys have a top tier product, right? And so the other day, I did an interview with Eric Littlejohn. You know Eric really well.
Yep.
And so Eric has been pretty clear on his business model. So Eric's business model is we want to be the 5th company that tries on the job. Have you ever heard him talk about that? Okay, no. So and he talked about it during one of our interviews. So Eric's business model is, hey, I want other companies to screw up before they call me. And his method makes sense because now he can get the absolute top price, right? The absolute top price. So if you have 4 companies come to do something and they've all screwed up and you've paid thousands of dollars over the years and they've all done a bad job, when he walks in and says, look, here's the bill. By the way, here's our guarantee, here's how we do business. Like he gets his number, right?
Right.
And probably sells at the top dollar of most companies in the country, in all honesty. And so my question to you is, being the fact that AAC has these top tier products, like what's your belief in that? Like, how do you feel about that? And I don't know if you ever thought about it, and that's part of the session with Seth, right? You get hit with this. So what are your thoughts about that?
On carrying top tier quality products?
Well, no, I think on the concept of, hey, let companies, and again, unrelated to Eric, but just in general, it's a very interesting topic. Like,
so I think that really what Eric's doing in a roundabout way is something that I've preached in a lot of my sales training, and that is that
I agree.
It is vastly important. An educated customer is a buying customer.
Yep.
So one of the things through the education in the sales process is that you have to get them to understand the value of what you're offering.
Yep.
When you have 3 companies that have come out ahead of you and screwed it up, they're reinforcing the value that you bring. Like when you get there and you say, hey, look, this is what's been done. This is how we do things different. All you're doing right there is solidifying the value that you bring to the table that they haven't gotten out of the people before. And it doesn't matter. I mean, they could have, we'll use that 5th company concept. They could have 4 companies come out, and if all 4 of those companies said, hey, it's going to be $1,500 for us to do this, and they do it 4 different times at $1,500, and Eric comes in and says, oh, look.
20 grand.
Yeah, like what's been done isn't done right. This is the difference. Here are the pictures on how we do these things. Yep. You guys have already spent $6 grand on doing this, and you've been taken to the cleaner, and this is not quality work. You know, we're going to be $12, $14, $18, $20,000 to do it.
Yep.
But you're going to be done with the problem. You're going to be done with the hassle. You hire us, and we're the last company that you need for it. It's really driving that value home and getting that customer to understand it. I mean, he's simply using his competitors in his market to reinforce their quality. I mean, I think it's brilliant.
It's really smart, and I can tell you this is like as I started thinking about it really. And now again, I've been working with them for years,
right.
and so one of the things it made me think about, like listening to him, and it made me like rethink about a point when I was down at the first AAC conference, is that, and I think it was your presentation, is that there was a presentation on the proposal, and I don't know if you remember. I thought it was yours. I don't remember, but there was something super smart said that I thought people should just do this, and we've actually implemented this with lots of our clients at this point. And it was the idea of when you put a proposal out in front of a customer, is that you have the proposal says, this is what's required, this is what's recommended, and this is optional. And the stuff that goes into that box that's required is the driver. Yeah. And I learned that at one of your conferences, and I went, hey, that's interesting. That's smarter than the way that we were building proposals. And so we've implemented that. And I think that concept can drive this home in a big, big, big way. If a customer understands what's required, and we don't let the customer determine what's optional.
Yes, and that's just it. I mean, we see a lot of, we work with our customers as close as they want to work with us. It doesn't matter what they're struggling with.
Do you snuggle with them if they invite you over or no?
I mean, if it'll help them close sales, I'll snuggle. I'm fine with that. But when someone's struggling, when a company's struggling with getting proposals accepted that have top tier products on it that are premium exclusion work, in that driving that ticket price up, one of the things that we often see is that they're not giving the customer a proposal; they're giving them a menu.
Yeah,
like it's literally the entire every step along the way is listed, which I'm a fan of.
Yep.
If I'm a homeowner, I should know what's being done to my house in detail every step along the way. But from an operator standpoint, where you're cutting your own throat is when you line item each of those with a price. Because as a consumer, if they're looking at a quote and that quote is, we'll just use 10 grand for even figures, we're looking at a quote and that quote has 6 or 7 steps on it as far as what needs to be done. And the total is 10,000. And I look at one line item and I see that one line item is 45% of that bill.
Swipe it out, yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, can we do it without doing this part? And once you start that ball rolling, when you have a customer that's trying to a la carte, man, that is a uphill battle to get them to understand the value. And literally all you had to do was put the same total dollar figure and don't put each piece in front of it. That's it. And then drive home the fact that this, if you want your problem solved, $10,000 is what's going to do it.
Do you know what's funny? It's funny. So years ago, and a good mutual friend of ours, Jay Vincent, he's a good mutual friend of ours, like years ago, I was in his office and we were structuring his proposals, and him and I got into this whole thing about that item. And Jay goes, I'm going to write mine the way I want. And I said, well, you're gonna run the sales process that we want. And we ended up agreeing, right? And it was great. And so Jay, and you've seen his proposals, I'm sure. They're the most detailed proposal I've ever seen in my entire life. And I remember him telling me, he's like, dude, I will spend hours and hours rewriting these things to get the templates perfect. And I would tell people like that are watching this, like if you want to see some sick stuff, like his stuff's crazy.
Dude, the amount of detail that Jay has put into building his business, from their SOPs,
which is great.
I mean, from everything that guy could literally walk away from his business and hand the playbook to somebody, and it would run seamless just off of the literature. Yeah,
it was pretty cool. Like we were fortunate. Well, I think we started working with them years ago and built like some of that initial structure, and it was pretty cool. But that was, I think about what you're saying with that like your proposal stress. I feel like they can drive a business too.
Oh, absolutely, it could. So, I mean, all of that comes from when I started writing proposals. I was writing them the same way, line item.
Oh, were you?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, everything that I've learned in the industry has been from in the field. I mean, it's been from hang-ups that I saw. I mean, I was a technician in the field from 05 to 15, or from 05 to 20. So it's all come from 15 years of screwing it up on my own and figuring out what's not working. Yeah. And that was one of the things that early on I realized, hey, if I keep telling people how much each step is going to be, they're going to keep picking the steps out that they don't want. So I'm just going to stop telling them how much step 3 is in the process and just say, this is the solution, this is the price.
So I think that's really important what you said here. And I hope people are really listening to that. And so it's the steps in the process. The steps in the process matter. And so, and obviously, like we teach how you answer the phone at the door, the whole thing all the way through. But I think that's a really smart statement. And I hope people pay attention. It's the steps in the process. So we're saying however you do your inspections, all that stuff, whether you follow our methodology or a different one, doesn't matter. But when you're going through that proposal, is that if the customer cuts a step out, it's not going to be successful
at all.
The product's going to fail.
Yeah. From a young company standpoint, it's really tempting to take every dollar you can get out of doing that. But here's one of the things about doing that can circle back around behind you and bite you on the backside of it, is that I promise you, when you write that proposal and that customer starts to pick out steps that they don't want, when that fails and you've told them that it's going to fail, here's what they're not going to do. They're not going to go to their neighborhood Facebook page and say, hey, this company came down and wrote a proposal for me and I didn't want all of it done and now I have animals back. That's not how it goes.
No.
Instead, it's company XYZ came and they took all this money from me and they didn't get the job done, so I wouldn't use them.
Yep.
It's never that they omitted part of the process. So at the end, if I had a customer that was insisting on leaving something out, I would circle that line item that they were leaving out. They would initial it and date it. I would initial it and date it.
Super smart.
And then there would be an asterisk. That asterisk would flip to an asterisk at the bottom that said, Mr. or Mrs. Smith chose to omit this portion of the exclusion on this date. And then it would have their signature directly below my signature on the proposal. Like, I wanted to make sure that if at any point a customer tried to take to social media and bash us, I wanted documentation. Like, I don't want to have to do that, but I want documentation that I can maybe send them and say, hey,
let's be fair.
Just to refresh your memory in case you don't remember, we told you this was going to happen.
Yep.
You initialed this, that you understood it, and then you signed it saying that you understood it. I get that it's not working. Let me come back out. Let me see how much it's going to be to fix this. But I think you should probably remove those posts.
Well, you know, and I think, I wonder, like, if I really think about it, like, people are people, and like some people are going to be irrational, but I think like we're trying to educate somebody on something they don't know, they don't understand. And so I think what you're really saying is like, we're educating them in a process, and then we're saying, hey, you've made a decision to not go along with our education, which is okay. And so, and I would argue they probably, I mean, if you think about all the times you ever had to do that, how often have you ever had to send that message? Probably very rarely.
Zero.
Yeah, because you're doing your job on the front end, right?
On the front end.
And I think with these accounts, these jobs are big enough to where, like, take the extra time, right? Like, let's take the extra time.
Yes.
Well, cool, man. Well, listen, I've asked you a whole bunch of questions. So do you have any random questions for me before I ask you some random questions?
Man, I didn't have time to prep for this like you did.
Oh, man, it was
so
good.
I get a message today asking if I want to do it, and I'm like, I mean, I'm going to jump on every chance I get to sit down and talk with you, of course.
Oh, that's so nice.
I don't have anything pre-planned to come into it. I don't get the prep time.
So are you going to get the fun question?
I mean, let's.
All right. So here's the question. So we all love Tony, right?
Oh yeah.
We all love Tony. So the question is that since Tony's became a vegetarian, how is he doing?
I mean, he's slimming up. He's watching his weight. Yeah, I think his goal is to fit back into skinny jeans. So I think is what his goal is in the end. So
I'm hoping he stays on this vegetarian kick, because like I shook his hand the other day again.
Yeah.
And like, he's too strong, dude. Like, he crushes my hand every time. I mean, I've got like wimpy like ex-pest control owner hands.
Right, yeah.
And like Tony's hand grip strength is unbelievable.
The amount of steak that guy consumes is, I mean, everywhere we go, it's steak all the time. I'll give him credit. Like, you make fun of him for being a vegetarian. I don't know anybody that eats as much salad as he eats. I mean, I don't. I just don't know anybody that eats as much steak with the salad as what he eats also. But no, I mean, yeah, I love the comment on the post.
Did you like that?
Oh, yeah.
So any of you guys who are watching this, go to @Siri AAC and go ask him how his vegetarian diet's going. Just make that happen for us. It'll make us feel great. We need to bring Tony into the vegetarian world.
You ought to get him in front of the camera sometime and ask him about it. You ought to just, when we're done,
go over and videotape
tomorrow sometime. They're probably out by now, but tomorrow sometime you ought to just grab Kelly, walk over there, put the camera in his face,
and ask him about being a vegetarian.
And ask him about it.
I mean, that's obviously going to happen now. So
I hope so.
So anything else for us today, man? Are you good?
No, I mean, I just, I support what you guys are doing. Obviously,
Thanks,
as a company, we support, our driving passion, and we've been very open with you about this.
Yep.
Education is the big thing. I mean, not saying that we have all the answers, but saying that, we, like you guys, are here to support growth in business and business success. So, I mean, the industry is one that's evolving, and is evolving quickly. And I'm excited about, what the next, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years has for us. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to helping companies grow and seeing what comes next.
That's cool, man. Well, guys, I'm greatly appreciated to have Jack. If y'all have questions, he does brilliant work. He does awesome training. You guys love him. So I appreciate you joining us for a little bit, man.
It's been a pleasure.
It was great to see you, man. Yeah, thank you.